Hey guys, thanks for watching the first 25 episodes of the High Point Land series. We have something really cool planned that we're going to announce at the end of this episode for the future that we think you're really going to enjoy. But for this episode, what we really want to talk about is the 5 top things that we learned about land ownership, land improvements, financing, 1031 exchanges, you name it, while hanging out with Bill Winke. So the first thing that we wanted to highlight was a conversation that Mr. Matt Tobin and Bill Winke had on the topic of getting in the game with land ownership. Getting in the game is a lot like the Warren Buffett quote of time in the market versus timing the market. There's a lot of talk right now about interest rates and financing and land prices going up and down, and when you have time in the market versus trying to time the market, you establish a price, is what Bill said. When you establish a price and you lock in that price over time, if we look in the past history, land has traditionally gone up. And if land is traditionally going up, if you establish a price and get into a piece of land, it gives you the opportunity to improve that land, experience some tax benefits potentially, as well as have some appreciation from that point forward. So if land does go up substantially, you have that built-in appreciation that allows you to do some things in the future. So that was definitely number one that we learned, was from that conversation with Matt Tobin and Bill Winke. All right, so the second thing that we learned while hanging out with Bill Winke was rewatching an episode with Mr. Lucas Mested, Wisconsin broker for High Point, that he had a conversation about the topic of Real Estate 101, location, location, location. And through the episodes, a big thing we learned was what is so important about land real estate and location is the neighborhood, the access to the property, if it's full of invasive species that are going to be difficult to manage once you start making some improvements to that property, and anything else that's important to you and your family's intentions with owning a piece of land based on the location of that property. How close is it to your home or your cabin? What are you going to use it for? Are the neighbors going to be a problem or going to be a benefit? Is the structure of the property what you want to use it for and something that you can manage? And is it something that's in a general location and has the general access that you need it to for your intentions? So number 2 was definitely location, location, location. The third thing that we learned was a conversation that Mr. Garrett Halama and Eric Halverson, Wisconsin land brokers for High Point Land Company, they had a conversation with Bill through a couple different episodes that was on the topic of habitat before food. So Bill has really had great experiences with his decades of land management and making hunting properties better. But what he's learned is don't go load a bunch of food into a property and put in food plots, because you're going to attract a lot of deer from neighboring properties, which is what you want to do eventually. However, if you're going to do direct seeding of oaks, or you're going to plant apple trees or do any type of tree planting or habitat improvements, if you have a pile of deer that move into the property, those habitat improvements are going to become very frustrating because the deer are going to do what deer do, and they have to eat a lot. So habitat before food was definitely the third most important thing that we learned during the High Point Land series with Bill Winke, making sure you don't load a bunch of food into a property, attract a bunch of deer, and then make those habitat improvement projects much more difficult than what they need to be. So the fourth topic that we talked about with Bill Winke was a conversation that I had with him, as well as Mr. Nick Hopp, on the topic of expanding acres. So land in the history of land has been an appreciable asset. It's gone up in value over time. So what the conversations were based on 1031 exchanging from a property of X amount of acres into a property that's bigger than that, and then doing it again and doing it again via a couple different tools. So the 1031 exchange is a tax deferment exchange opportunity that we discussed, that was an opportunity to buy a property at one value, have it go up in value and sell that first property, deferring that taxable gain and going into a bigger property or a property of higher value, and avoiding or deferring the tax capital gains tax exposure. And with that also becomes another opportunity to finance against that property. So let's say that you had a property that was 50 acres and it went up in value by $1,000 an acre, and then you wanted to buy an adjoining 50 acres, so you had 100, using the opportunity for the increase in value of that property to do an equity pull on that property for the down payment on the next property. So a couple of very cool tools that land as an appreciable asset allows you to get more acres and more land in time with ownership. So the fifth and final thing that we learned, which is probably the biggest takeaway that we had from conversations with Bill Winke, was a conversation that Mr. Nick Hopp, Iowa land specialist with High Point Land Company, and Bill had a conversation, and I fully agree with them. I mean, we're not here to give financial advice, but from the experience of those guys and Bill's experience and agents that we have in dealing with thousands of transactions and thousands of personal owned property, is that land is an absolutely wonderful investment. It gives you the flexibility to do what you want with the property, with your intentions, allows you to stand on an investment and actually have a tangible asset that continuously, what Bill said, continuously is more scarce. They're making less and less of it every day, and I agree with that. There's less recreational property every day. There's less tillable land to produce food and fiber in the United States and in the world every day with developments and highway projects and soil erosion. So what Bill and Nick were primarily talking about, which is a great topic in that video, is how land has been a great investment for them and how that's what they trust for their investment dollars, putting their money where their mouth is and having it for their intentions and their families. All right, so those were the top 5 things that we've learned from 25 episodes with Bill Winke and High Point Land Company agents, having conversations on the land in different states about land ownership, about land improvement, and how much of a joy land has been to all of us and our clients to own property in different places in the Midwest. What I promised you we would talk about was we're going to implement this now, and I think there's something that we need to talk about that not anybody wants to talk about that I think would be very beneficial, and that would be personally buying a property, how to finance it, what it's paid, what you pay for it, what down payment options are there, and then move into improvement options on the farm, and go through the numbers exactly to make the ownership dream of buying real estate, owning it for hunting land or buildable property or tillable land, and taking you guys through the entire process of buying a farm. So we're going to introduce a new series called the Dream 80, and we're going to go buy an 80-acre tract that I personally purchased with my wife and take you through the entire steps of the process, from purchasing the property to land improvements and working on the farm and talking about the numbers and the financing, and really hoping to add some value to you along the way. I want to thank you guys for subscribing, liking, following, and commenting on our High Point Land series with Bill Winke for the first 25 episodes. We hope with this next Dream 80 series that you can learn the ins and outs of purchasing land and see how it's been a wonderful investment for many of our clients and staff throughout the years. Land ownership has been great to all of us, and we hope that it is to you as well. So tag along through this next series and keep subscribing, liking, and commenting if you like the content that we're putting out there, so we know that we're doing a good job, and hopefully you learn something along the way and can turn the dream of owning property into a reality for you and your family.